I told my wife she has to choose our family over hers. Happy birthday to me! It's my birthday today, you guys. At the time that this is posted, I am officially 25 years old. Kidding. I wish. I'm 33 today, all right? But you know what? I have so much to be grateful for. I'm 33 and you guys truly have made my 32 year what it is and so special. So I can't wait to spend my 33rd year with all you guys. This story came August 29th, 2025. So my wife has already told me that I am the a-hole in this situation, even if she didn't use those exact words. And I know nothing Reddit has to say about it would change her mind, especially since I won't and can't tell her that I'm even posting about it. But I'm starting to question my own judgment a bit here. So maybe you can all set me straight. Yes, we can. We love to give our opinion. My wife and I are in the middle of a really rough patch in our marriage. We separated for 6 months, and even when we ended the separation, the issues that caused it weren't fixed. Long story short, I lost my job when she was pregnant. She asked me to move out. When I moved back in, I was sleeping in the basement for quite a while. She refused any sort of physical contact, and we've just started marriage counseling. The second session was last night. And in MC, I've come to learn that her family more or less hates me. MC is marriage counseling, by the way. Or at the very least, don't trust me. Like, not at all. During our marriage counseling session last night, our therapist said that it was important for us to start spending more time together, both as a family, we have 2 kids, and as a couple. My wife was resistant to the idea of date nights, so the counselor reframed it as exposure therapy. Basically, she said that neither of us will ever get past the barriers that we have built up in our relationship if we continue to essentially live separate lives. My wife seemed to understand that and was fairly receptive to the idea, at least while we were in the counselor's office. Which brings us to this weekend. In America, it's a holiday weekend, and our family has a long-standing tradition of spending the 3-day weekend at my in-laws' camp on the lake. I am a sucker for cottages and camping. My sister-in-law and her family come, and most of my wife's extended family pops in at least for an afternoon or evening or 2 if they don't want to spend the night. Some of her and my sister-in-law's friends from high school usually drop by for a catch-up too, and I know that my wife has been trying to reconnect with friends in an effort to find an identity outside of just being a mom and a wife. But given our current marital strife, the knowledge that my mother-in-law has actively and repeatedly tried to convince my wife that we should not be together, my new and growing worry that my mistakes are now a black cloud hanging over my relationship with all of my wife's family and friends, and that due to space constraints, we'd not only have to share a room, but also a bed, it seemed to me like heading to camp should be a no-go. So what'd you do though? What did you do? My mistakes is the wording here, and y'all separated and aren't physical anymore. I'm not gonna assume anything, but I'm wondering. My wife didn't agree. In fact, 15 minutes after we got home from our marriage counseling session last night, she started packing up for the weekend. But she was only packing for her and the kids. She didn't come right out and say it, but it was pretty obvious that the plan was for my family to go to the lake without me, and even though we'd just been told a little more than half an hour before that we needed to spend time together. I tried pointing that out in a calm and non-confrontational way as much as I could, using the "I feel" statements that our therapist suggested. I said to my wife, quote, "I feel like this weekend is a really good opportunity for us to spend some time together as a family, and I really feel like if 3/4 of us go to the camp, that isn't just living separate lives, but making a point of living separate lives." At first, she thought I was trying to be included in the trip and go with her and the kids, much like I forced my way into the zoo trip. I quickly explained that no, that was 100% not what I wanted, and what I was hoping for was that she and the kids could stay home with Me. There's a whole bunch of picnics and barbecue and block party events going on in and around our neighborhood, and I thought we could get to some of those and spend time as a family. In my head, starting off by doing something as a whole family instead of just as a couple would build in a buffer for her, would also be a good chance to show that I can be a real partner in parenting, and would let her see me in what I know is my best light as a dad. That was what I thought in my head, but apparently my head and my wife's head were not on the same page, as she said no to the idea and said, I want to spend the weekend with my family. One thing our therapist stressed repeatedly was that to have any chance at productive conversations, we both need to avoid any kind of escalation in our communication, which was probably because things escalated more than once during our latest session. So, I took a deep breath and I did not point out that spending the weekend with me and kids would be spending it with her family. And despite what many Redditors have said I should do, I didn't lay out any ultimatums or ask her to cut back on contact with her family or suggest that she was planning some kind of lakeside hookup with some guy my mother-in-law might better approve of. But this is when I might have been the a-hole, or definitely was, according to my wife. I tried sticking to the I feel idea, and I told her that I felt like she took the kids and went to the camp without me, especially if she went less than a day after our counselor said that we needed to spend more time together, and that she was making a choice, and that choice was clearly not us. So in her mind, for all intents and purposes, I gave her an ultimatum. Do you think that she took that well and we were able to have a calm and productive and healthy conversation about it, and maybe even come to some sort of compromise? Do you think I'd be posting this at almost midnight on the Friday of a holiday weekend because my blood pressure is through the roof and I can't sleep if she did? She told me in no uncertain terms that I was the a-hole for laying that all on her, reminded me that it was my choices that got us here in the first place, stopped packing, and after making sure both kids were asleep, she went into our bedroom, which has only been her bedroom for the past year, shut the door, and locked it. And now I have no idea if I'm going to wake up to my wife and kids waiting to hang out with me, or spend the next 3 days together, or if they'll be on the road to camp before the sun is even up. I do know that she thinks I am absolutely the a-hole, and I kind of think she might be right. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife she was choosing her family over her family with me and the kids? Truthfully, I need more details before I form an opinion. And luckily, we have a lot of comments that were answered and more updates. Let's check out the top comments so far. So someone commented and it says, OOP responds to a comment on his wife not understanding that her kids are also his as well, and that she shouldn't be separating her kids from their dad. So the OOP said, I'll admit it, I was thinking a lot of this on Friday night after I posted. I spent most of the night getting increasingly pissed off, which was sort of the opposite of what the counselor said I should be doing. I was ready for a fight. And then my wife actually came to me and offered a compromise, and while I was still a bit angry, I did my best to see it as an olive branch and chose to take it in instead of breaking it. We'll see where things go from here. Interesting. Someone else commented, I'm very curious how much you helped with parenting, home maintenance, and financial support to the kids during the separation. And why haven't you agreed to your wife cutting back her hours like she desperately needs to? I think it's clear that we're missing pieces of the story, because sometimes on Reddit that happens when they compile things get deleted and whatever. So thank God for these comments, because I'm learning a lot. OOP wrote back, until I got an actual job and not just PT work to keep some money coming in, she was the primary financial support. But when I got my current job, I was able to get back to contributing what I had before, and eventually even more than I did. The entire time I wasn't living at home, every penny I made that I didn't have to spend on food or gas was put directly into our joint account and available for her to use for the house and the kids. I parented as much as possible, including picking up our son in the mornings and evenings. I took him to doctor's appointments and went to every baby-related appointment with my wife. I don't think she wanted me at all of them at first, but she has since told me that it reassured her that no matter the outcome for our marriage, I would still be fully present as a father. And not to be defensive or an a-hole, but I have to ask, why do you think she desperately needs to cut back her hours? But I'm the one working 3 jobs, and cutting back on her hours would make that more of a permanent thing rather than getting us back on stable ground. Just wondering why you think that's a desperate need. Now we're moving on to the first update, which came September 1st, 1 week later. I mentioned in a comment reply to my last post that my wife actually woke me up in the early morning after I had basically given her the ultimatum to choose between her family and our family. She wanted to talk before she and the kids left for the in-laws camp. To be honest, I was expecting it to be the "I'm not coming back" or "we should get lawyers talk." But it wasn't. To my surprise, my wife actually apologized. She said the comment about wanting to spend the weekend with her family had been out of line and intended to hurt me. She was pissed and annoyed at me because she knew that I was kind of right about what I was saying, and she lashed out. It's not the first time that has happened, so her explanation didn't shock me that much. But she also said that she understood where I was coming from. If we want to fix things, and we both said that we do, then lashing out like that needs to stop, and we need to spend time together as a family. And she completely got why choosing to spend the entire weekend with her family, who dislike me and had just become public knowledge instead of being with me, might have been upsetting for me. For a moment, I thought she was going to invite me to camp with her, and I'm not gonna lie, I was panicking. I was worried that right after I'd more or less demanded she spend time with me, that I was going to have to refuse an invitation to do exactly that. But there was no chance I was going to willingly spend 3 days with my mother-in-law or sister-in-law, particularly not after our last counseling session. Carrie didn't invite me. Instead, she offered a compromise. She and the kids would go to camp Saturday and stay until midday Sunday, then come home and spend the rest of the weekend with me. There were so many family members of hers who live out in California who would be there on Saturday, and she doesn't get to see them very often. So that actually felt really fair to me, and like Carrie was putting in an honest effort to try and meet me halfway, so I agreed. Carrie is the wife, by the way, you guys. He decided to name her because he named her in a comment. There's a note here. This is the wife, Carrie. They left for camp that morning and came back on Sunday as planned, and we had a really nice day and a half together. There was a block party kind of thing on Monday, and so we took the kids to that, and I made sure to handle baby duty with our daughter as much as possible to give Carrie a break. She seemed pretty appreciative of that and got to spend some time with a few of our neighbors that she struck up friendships with and introduced me to some of them who I haven't met yet. It was nice. It felt normal, I guess, but as the day wore on, it got to be time to head back home, and I started to get anxious. The kids were wiped and would clearly be heading straight to bed, which would leave me and Carrie alone for more than an hour or so that we'd had on Sunday night. If we followed the counselor's advice, we would spend that time together. I was under no illusion that spending time was going to be a result in any sort of spousal relations or anything like that, but there would have to be some talking, and I was concerned about what topic of conversation wouldn't lead us to some sort of trouble. Sounds like this marriage is really struggling. If you have anxious to spend like an hour with your partner because you don't know how to talk to them in a positive way, I'm happy they're in marriage counseling. And it felt like maybe I was right when the first thing Carrie said was that she wanted to talk about the possibility of her having those girl nights with her and her mom and sister. We'd essentially punted on that topic during our last counseling session. Other things had come up that had escalated tensions, and the therapist said we probably weren't in the best place to make a good decision about any of that at the moment. But since she spent a day and a half with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, I guess I shouldn't have been surprised that it came back up. I was surprised that she offered another compromise. She didn't have to cut her work hours down to part-time, and she just had to adjust her hours on other days so she could leave early on the girls' nights and come in late the following day. Apparently, she had already cleared that with work and would start doing it whenever she wanted, even as soon as this week. She hadn't been at work since our last session, so it was obvious that she had gotten all of this clearance before she even talked about it with the therapist. On the one hand, I could see how it was a compromise and it seemed pretty fair, which was good. On the other hand, I felt sort of misled. Not sure if that's the right word. Like she made the compromise about the weekend to soften me up for the possibility of agreeing to these girls' nights. I would say that that might be me being paranoid or overly suspicious, and that's probably a direct result of how many she's planning to cheat or already is comments that I've gotten here on Reddit. If you ask for advice on Reddit, you're gonna get advice on Reddit, and it might not be what you want to hear. People are crazy on that app. But just because you're paranoid, that doesn't mean they're not out to get you, right? I did my best to ignore the paranoia, but also get to what was starting to worry me. I asked her flat out why having a weekly girls' night with her mom and sister, something she had never done before, was so important to her now, especially since both mother-in-law and sister-in-law are very actively against our marriage. Maybe she is cheating. Maybe there's more here. Okay, something's tingling. Something is tingling inside. The sassy senses are sparking up over here. I said I didn't want to cut her off from them or prevent her from having some fun and an escape, but the idea of her spending an entire night out drinking and in situations where there's a pretty high likelihood of venting and complaining about relationships with two people who might be inclined to encourage her worst instincts when it came to our relationship made me really anxious. Understandable. I didn't suggest that she might be using it as an opportunity to cheat. I didn't even let on that thought that she might even find someone else had crossed my mind, or the minds of a lot of anonymous Redditors. I stayed as far away from any of that as possible, and I tried to keep the conversation focused on my worries about her spending that much time with mother-in-law and sister-in-law. Carrie said she understood. She said that that was a reasonable concern, especially given all that she had shared in our session about her mom's feelings towards me. And she said that normally she would probably give in and stay home and spend that time with me and the kids. But she said, my sister needs me right now. Her husband left her. All right. My senses could be off here. Let's see. Apparently, brother-in-law left sister-in-law the day after the family's annual 4th of July party, and my sister-in-law is not taking it well. And when sister-in-law doesn't take something well, my mother-in-law takes it worse, and then since brother-in-law was the golden boy, the perfect son-in-law, the one I was always unfavorably compared to, there's a lot of upset and anger and sadness, and Carrie feels like she needs to spend time with her family to support her sister. She wants to help sister-in-law navigate suddenly becoming a single parent and help her figure out if she can find a way to reconcile with brother-in-law and basically act like sister-in-law's conscience and keep her from making any bad choices while there's still the possibility of saving her marriage. Bad choices like hooking up with some random dude at a bar during one of their girls' nights, which, as I found out last night in counseling, is exactly the reason brother-in-law left her. She cheated on him. So, my wife is asking me to be okay with her spending nights out with her mother, who hates me, and her sister, who's a cheater and hates me, and not feel any kind of way about all of that. And even if I do, it doesn't really matter, as sister-in-law needs her, and Carrie has already made it all good with work and doing what she wants and compromising on what she really wanted and had asked for. And that's a good thing and a sign of progress for our reconciliation. Both Carrie and I and our therapists think if I can see it in those terms, I will realize that there's nothing to be worried or upset about, which is how I got here, writing an update to Reddit while my daughter is napping in her crib next to me and my wife is on her way to her mother's house for girls' night, which got moved to Friday nights thanks to the holiday. So she doesn't even have to worry about work tomorrow. And I am just fine with that. Really, I'm totally 100% fine with it. I even told Carrie that on her way out the door. Go ahead, Reddit, tell me I'm an idiot trying to cling to any small steps in the right direction for this family, but still an idiot. Well, I'm not going to use those words, but maybe some of my subscribers might. Let me know your thoughts, but we got more. The story is not done yet. I'm curious what senses you guys are picking up. Before we check out some more comments, we're hopping on hydration station. This is very Halloween of me. It's not even October yet, Joss. No, not allowed. Anyways, I love fall. Cheers. Drink your water. Anyone else have a love-hate relationship with black clothing? Love me a black hoodie, all right? But lint rolling it 25 times a day is so annoying. You can see everything on black clothing, but I love it. So here's the top comment on this recent update. It says OOP responds to a comment regarding his family background, making him like he is the second best, and likely that his wife and her family is doing the same to him. OOP said, so I spent most of the weekend offline trying to be present with my kids and my wife when she got back home, but I was also processing this comment, and I'll be honest, I didn't want to hear what you guys were saying, and I didn't want to think about any of it potentially being true. And I really didn't want to consider the idea that the person who thinks the least of me is actually me. I might not have wanted to do all of that or think about all that, but I did. It kind of ate at me, and I did a much better job of hiding that than I did hiding my feelings at the job I lost. So I've learned something. But when I was alone at night, I really couldn't hide it. I have no idea what I'm going to do next or what I want to do, but I do understand that what I've been doing is not sustainable or healthy. I have an appointment with my old individual therapist this week. I texted her last night hoping for a response today, but she replied almost immediately. She is squeezing me in for an emergency session. I got the feeling from what she said that she might have been expecting this to happen sooner or later. So even though I didn't want to hear it and it hurt a lot, thank you for the comment. It gave me a push that I didn't want to admit that I needed. Now, next update. Is this the final update? This is the final update, which came 6 days later, September 11th. Not the update I had planned for. Uh-oh, we have trouble in paradise, everybody. I thought I was going to post about the revelations in marriage counseling and more about my own therapy session. And instead, I'm writing this while sitting in an uncomfortable pleather chair in the family lounge of our local children's hospital, where I've been for about the last 24 hours. Long story short, my son fell down the stairs in our house. Oh my gosh. At minimum, he broke his arm. I say at minimum because they have been evaluating him for some head trauma and there are questions as to what caused the fall. We have very specific rules for the stairs with him. No socks, no footy PJs, always hold the railing, go very slowly, and if mom or dad are there and not holding his sister, hold one of their hands. He was good on the first 3. We even installed a second railing below the first one at a more age-appropriate height. He had a grip on that, but I was the only one home and was carrying his sister down the stairs, so he didn't take my hand. I don't know what happened exactly. I've described it like 20 times to the doctors and to my wife, but it is still not entirely clear. He was down 3 steps and his foot was out to go down 1 more, and then he just stopped and then dropped. It was about 6 more steps to the bottom, and I chased, but I couldn't get there, and I think that is when he hit the landing that his arm broke. That's so sad. My brother broke his arm when he was really young, and it was awful to watch. And I was also watching him when he cracked his head open. Yeah, he still doesn't let me let that go. Not totally my fault. He jumped off a chair and smacked his head on the radiator, but I was in the room playing a game of Clue on the computer, and I was technically supposed to be watching him. I was young, y'all. Anyways, he's fine, but he didn't even cry out. I called 911 and then my wife, but I had to leave her a voicemail, and how the F do you leave that message without sounding like it's the end of the damn world? I don't even remember what I said, but then the ambulance was there and off we went to the hospital, and we have been here since. My wife met us there a couple hours later, which was after they had given my son some children's painkillers and something to calm him down a bit. So at least she didn't have to see the worst of it. My in-laws and parents have both come by, and my daughter is with my parents now. There is no drama like at the zoo, as apparently we're all able to be adults when the kid is hurting. And no, before someone asks, my wife wasn't at girls' night. She had a massive work event for all of the offices in our region that was being held 2 hours away. She got back as quickly as she could. No one, including my wife or her mom or the doctors, has blamed me for what happened, but the guilt is eating me alive. I should have been quicker. I should have been in front of him and not behind him. Hell, the only reason I'm even writing this is because my wife is with him and she told me to take a break because she saw how bad it was getting to me. Like it or not, she still knows me pretty well, and I guess I just needed to see it in writing on the screen to see if it might make any more sense. It doesn't. I expect we're going to be here a while longer. I haven't slept since Wednesday night. I might crash in this awful chair and try to shut my brain off, or I might respond to the messages in my inbox that I haven't gotten to. And that is it as of now. However, people did comment on this recent turn of events, so let's check that out. Someone wrote a comment and it says OOP should check in with the doctors about getting an EKG for his son about the possible seizures. Oh, I actually witnessed a friend have a seizure on a staircase before. Like, she went down, we were very confused, and yeah, she fell and it was a seizure. OOP wrote back, my very basic WebMD search while I was in the waiting hospital room led me to the same conclusion, and as it turns out, the actual doctors think so too. We will be seeing a neurologist soon, though we did meet with a neuro attending in the hospital who was less than helpful. It was a seizure. I believe the term is an absence seizure. He's had 3 more of them since the stairs. It isn't clear yet if this is a permanent thing or something he's going to outgrow. So far, he hasn't had them in any regards of a dangerous situation since that first one. The next comment. Accidents happen, unfortunately. You can't blame yourself. You have rules to make sure he is safe, but there is only so much you can do. Things will happen outside of your control. There was no way you could have gotten to him carrying his sister in your arms and being higher up than him. Try to redirect your guilt. OOP wrote back saying a social worker spoke with us in the hospital. She did say that it was just routine and that my son's injuries were consistent with a fall and not any sort of abuse. She spoke with my wife and I together and separately, and I obviously can't know for sure what Carrie said during their individual conversation. I do know that in the joint discussion, she made it very clear that she did not think I had done anything and that it could have just have easily happened when she was watching him. I think you guys out there, parents, know better than anyone how quickly an accident like that can happen. So I feel like this part of the story is very understanding, but I am curious what you think about the marriage aspect. The girls' night, the cheating. I'm gonna keep my eye out because I'm curious where their marriage ends up and also that their child is okay. But let me know your thoughts and feelings on this one. Stay classy out there. Stay sassy. I'll see you tomorrow.